So let's get started. Hello, Nicole. How are you doing?
I'm well. How about yourself?
I am wonderful, fabulous, and blessed and highly favored.
And I received that.
I'm excited today to be talking to you because I have known you for several years. And actually, as I was putting together your introduction and bio, I was like, wait a minute, almost 13 years in the making. You have been doing some amazing things, and I want to talk to you about them. So, you started off teaching abroad and you currently still teach. So you've been teaching about 13 years and you started in South Korea. What even prompted you, like, because you're from Detroit, what
Yep.
prompted you to go from Detroit to South Korea?
Girl, isn't that something? Like, I can't believe I keep telling people I've been gone for over a decade. I'm like, dang, it's going on 13 years. How did that happen? But yeah, so actually when I first moved abroad, I was living in Chicago. After graduating from University of Michigan, go blue, I moved to Chicago and I used to work in market research. And around like the late 2008, early 2009, like pre-Obama, right before he actually got elected, I was laid off. I used to work for a market research firm and I was laid off from my job. So I was looking for opportunities initially to stay in Chicago, but I was getting honestly desperate. So I started looking at opportunities wherever. So South Korea, Japan, like I started looking at ESL, English, teaching English as a second language opportunities, and primarily in East Asia. That's where I had some girlfriends who had taught in Japan. So it was like kind of on my radar as an opportunity, something to do. But yeah, being laid off from my job is really what prompted me to move abroad. And initially, I thought I would only be gone for like 1, maybe 2 years. And here
Mhm.
we are a decade later, still there.
13 years later. That's wonderful. I mean, it's not wonderful to get laid off, but
Right.
even though you were laid off, it gave you an opportunity to start looking outside of your comfort zone. But what I know that you have friends that were living and teaching abroad, but how did that come about? Because that's not something that normally people think about, and if we think about historically, it's really been, affluence or just let's call it what they call it, because I do statistics on white people, and white women make up like 85% of the population who either studies abroad and lives abroad. So when you're thinking, I got laid off, now I have to recalibrate, I'm gonna go live abroad, like how did we get there? Even though you had other friends, like how did they get there?
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. Like I said, honestly, getting laid off was a blessing in disguise because I'm living, literally like life like is a vacation. People are like, "Do you work?" I'm like, "Yes, I work." People think I live abroad and they always see me gone. I'm like, "No, I actually do have a job. I'm teaching." But yeah, so like my girlfriends, I had the year, I want to say maybe 2 years before I actually decided to move abroad, I had came to Japan to visit. I had three girlfriends that were teaching in Japan at the same time. Two
Okay.
of them were teaching at the same program with the public school system, and another was teaching at an academy similar to like the Hagwons we used to have in Korea. So, me and one of my other girlfriends, we came to visit them. And so, they all had studied Japanese in school. So they all
Mm.
yeah, and that's the beauty of language. They were all like, okay, Japan at that time, over a decade ago, especially some of them were located in rural areas. So it really wasn't an easy opportunity to teach over there if you didn't have at least a basic knowledge of Japanese. So I was like, okay, that's really cool. Like my girlfriends are teaching in Japan. I want to go visit them, on a summer holiday. And so after seeing them do it, it really did kind of like inspire me in the back of my mind when I was looking at opportunities. But I remember, I think it was like Hot Jobs, or it was one of those like online job databases that had posted an ad about a teaching in English and abroad. And I was like, let me just see what happens. And that's literally how it happened. Like it was locked in my memory that my girlfriends had did it a couple years prior to me. But when I saw the ad, I just applied and got it.
Wow.
So, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty fabulous. Because I know I wouldn't have even been thinking, I got to Korea, literally, it just came to me. But for you to have that opportunity, that's amazing. So for those listeners who are listening to the show and getting to know you, like you've taught, and then you've now pivoted and you have gotten the opportunity to travel the world doing some amazing writing and looking at different hotels. And so now you have travel writer under your belt. Tell us how you got into that.
It's interesting because I initially started blogging and, writing I want to say it was like my last year, right before I was getting ready to leave Korea. So, actually, we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary. I Love the Globe Trot, the travel blog and the online travel community. So, yeah, it's definitely it was the year that I was actually leaving Korea and started the site because I figured I would document my experience of moving from one country, from East Asia to the Middle East. I figured there might be some interest in that. And also wanted to start my own community. I think, many of us in Korea, a lot of us met through the Brothers and Sisters of South Korea group, which I'm still a member, even though I haven't been there in over 10 years. I'm still in the group because, that was my first opportunity to move abroad. So the idea was start I Love the Globe Trot, the blog / travel community, because I wanted to create my own space for people who were interested in travel and not just in a particular region. So that's really how it came to fruition. And from there, I started just writing about my experiences traveling around the Middle East. And I want to say India was one of my first trips that once we were getting ready to leave South Korea, I started writing about and pitching local newspapers in South Korea. And I remember I got published. I was one of my first publications, one of the Busan papers. And I was like, oh, wow. So when I first started the blog, I really wasn't thinking I'll be doing hotel reviews and restaurant reviews. I was just writing about traveling. But then I became more confident in pitching places for opportunities when I realized that travel blogging, it could be lucrative. So I was like, okay, let me just try my hand at it. And here we are.
Yeah, and you also was writing, or when I originally started Expat Women of Color, and I had women of color living abroad, you were one of my first bloggers. And then you started a group and then started shifting into travel writing. And it's been an amazing journey to watch. And so big ups to you for being able to do the work that you love, and then being able to showcase that in different arenas. So you've also written for Cosmo. Tell us how that came about, that particular opportunity.
Well, you know what? Actually, yeah, and when funny you mentioned that because I was thinking I was like, this feels like a full circle moment because you literally was one of the first people who gave me opportunity to blog before I even thought to start my own site. So with your site, Women of Color, so that was such a beautiful opportunity. So thank you for that. But yeah, honestly, Cosmo, that in particular, I was actually interviewed. I was featured in an article, about being a Black woman, dating and living abroad. So, I really wasn't expecting me dating someone living in the Middle East, and a local African Omani. I talked about my heart basically getting broken.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was interviewed for that piece, and the irony is that happened for Cosmo, how many years ago? My first year in Oman. So some years ago, I think that got published in 2014. So wow, about 8 years ago? So that happened. And recently, I literally just wrote an article for Folders Travel about my current boyfriend, how things are going well. So I was like, wow, we're from heartbreak to being in a committed And that's so like literally, but this piece I actually wrote, but that one I was interviewed for. But I thought about it, I was like, that's actually getting ready to come out soon. So that, another full circle moment of being an expat.
Yeah, there's a lot of full circle moments. That's amazing. So, when I talk to people about life being a vacay, and I want to be very clear for those people who have never listened to my podcast before, life is a vacay. It's really about defining your life on your own terms. And whether you work for someone and you clock in and you do a 9 to 5, or whether you're a freelancer or you literally are full blown entrepreneur managing other opportunities for other people, however you define that, I really want to, highlight those who are defining their life as they go. And you have been one of those people. So for you, how has being a teacher, living abroad, opened doors that you never thought would ever be open for you?
Definitely. One thing about, being an expat, being a teacher, but being just an expat in general, you definitely you step out on faith, like for me, like we were saying before, like I never thought that I would be living abroad for all these years and having all these amazing opportunities. So it's like, it definitely opened up a path that I didn't envision for myself before leaving the US to live abroad. So I'm just eternally grateful for really living life on my own terms. And I do feel like I'm living at my life as a vacation. I'm looking at my vision board over here, like my travel vision board, and all of these different places that I want to go to. And some of them I've, ticked off. And it's like, we really can create our own destiny at the end of the day. And I'm living beyond the dreams that I had for myself before moving abroad. So being able to travel the world and write about my experiences and meet interesting people from all over the globe, so I'm very grateful for this lifestyle.
Yeah. So what has kept you living abroad? Because you could have easily went back home, because like you said, you thought you would only be doing this for a year and it's turned into 13. But what has kept you living abroad and continuing to go from one country to the next country, not necessarily living, but having that experience of being able to see multiple countries?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Like for me, I spawned this amazing opportunity with like the travel blog and the writing. Like, I tell people, I don't know if you're familiar like with the 80-20 rule. It's like, I probably give that's probably bad example, about being a teacher, but honestly it's like the teaching aspect of living abroad has really paved the way for my true passion, which is travel. So, it's like, so I have the day job. I tell people I'm a teacher by day, blogger by night, on the weekend. And so it's like, honestly, if I didn't have I Luv the Globe Trot and been doing all of the traveling and the writing I've been doing, I probably would not have had the desire to stay gone as long as I've had. I've been so grateful to like marry two passions, like being able to teach, because I never thought, I didn't expect to be a teacher. Like before I used to work in market research, I had a communications degree before moving abroad and teaching English. So, I pivoted into ESL, and it's been such a great lifestyle living abroad, having the opportunity to travel throughout the region where I'm based now. I love being in the Middle East because I'm literally in the middle of the world. It's easy to get to. Like I just went to Europe for our Eid holiday. We had a religious holiday after Ramadan for a week, and so I went to Latvia. I just got back from there, and now in a few weeks summer vacation starts. So I'll be back home this summer for 2 months in Atlanta. So it's like the best of both worlds, being able to be in this region and traveling to Africa and Europe and East Asia. So yeah, I love it.
Okay, so tell everyone who is listening that is considering like, okay, they're sitting at their cubicle right now and they're like, dang, I really wish that I had the opportunity to go live abroad, but I don't know how to begin. How does one, transition and use something like teaching English as a second language to then be able to do the thing that they're passionate about? And so they're still getting a paycheck and actually talk a little bit about some of the perks of the position that you currently have. Or even if you don't have the same perks that you began with, what does it look like to be an English teacher and how do you get started?
You know what's funny is like since doing the blogging and writing about being abroad as a teacher, I used to get so many people emailing me and inboxing me in on the blog about how did you get into teaching English abroad. So I don't know if you noticed, but I actually it was the fifth year anniversary. I wrote a book self published on Amazon. It's called a Guide to Landing an English Teaching Job Abroad, because like I said, I didn't have experience in it before moving abroad, but now that I've been doing it for so long, and so many people have been coming to me asking for resources and questions about how to do it, I ended up publishing a book. So I interviewed like about 10 people about their experiences and did a lot of research, did a lot of the legwork for people, about different programs like EPIC that I used to work for, the English program in Korea, how I always recommend people to look into a program like that, getting started, because it doesn't have as rigorous as requirements as like say the Middle East, where I'm currently located. So literally like that's an opportunity like for
Mm-hmm.
people if they're interested. That's available on Amazon, and I've done a lot of research and about different resume templates, like literally everything that you need to apply for ESL positions it's available in that book. But
Okay.
yeah, but really I just tell people like really step out on faith and even if it's not teaching English, like, working for an embassy, abroad. And there's so many different avenues to get into living abroad. So I do
Right.
think, there are a lot of English teaching opportunities. So that is a good stepping stone, a way to start. But I
But
think it really depends on a person's background, like what their experience is.
right. But those who would be considered, let's just say, I'm considering now listening to this, I'm considering teaching. What are some of the perks that you get as a teacher living abroad?
Oh, well, for me, it's all about the holidays. Since I wanted, it's being able to travel, especially like for me, example, being here in the Middle East. My mom was like, I feel like you're always on holiday, like you're on vacation all the time. I'm like, well, it may look that way. I get a long holiday weekend here or there, and I just tend to travel when I get the opportunity. Pre-pandemic days, like, ooh, Corona, that was a whole other experience.
Right. Yeah, I can
I was
imagine.
stuck. I couldn't leave, and I was like, "Oh goodness!" So that was tough. But yeah, that honestly, that the biggest perk for me is we do get a lot of holidays. Unfortunately, is when me living in the Middle East, like there's no Christmas or New Year's holiday compared to like when I used to be in South Korea. We had those holidays, but for example, we just ended, Ramadan ended, and we had a week holiday for Eid, and Omani national holidays. We get a lot of holidays, so that's really the biggest perk. My housing, my accommodation is paid for. Tax-free income in this region in the Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a perk. So there's plenty of perks. Like your income is your income. So
Right.
if you diligent, if you're not into like doing a lot of traveling like me, like I probably should have more money saved up than I do, but I've been going to traveling so much. But there is a good opportunity to save if you're diligent enough. I know people who have come and taught English abroad and paid off all of their debts while they were gone, and had a nice little penny to go back home with. So it just depends on you, how you budget, how you plan. It's definitely feasible though.
Right. So I'm going to shift gears and go from the glory of all of this to what are some of the challenges and some of the things that you have to give up to have this life of vacay that you are currently living?
Ah, yes, absolutely. With anything worth having, it's going to have its challenges on the flip side. And for me, like the biggest thing is being away from my family. I mean, on the other side of the globe, my mother, she's getting older, and it is a concern for me sometimes being here. Like I'm grateful that I do have family. My sister is located in Atlanta, so at least she's nearby. But you know, not being able to just get on a plane and go home for the weekend, like I have to wait until summer vacation to be able to see my family. So that's 10 months out the year that I don't get to see them. Thank God for Skype and Zoom and Facebook and all of the technology. So I do get to talk to them, but you definitely have to have a thick skin as well, living in different places abroad. Like And Oman is very laid back, and the culture here is just like, oh, inshallah, like there's a lot of African Omanis, so it's like, some of my students look like me. So it's like people just like, oh, how is it being a single Black woman living in the Middle East? I'm like, actually, it's great. Like, I don't have any issues as an American, I'll say that. But but South Korea, you were there. It's just like it has some challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, there was definitely more positive than negative, but I will say that there were some times that you had to have a thick skin living in South Korea, and I know that's still the case. Different experiences. So, I sit, but the way I'm such an optimistic person, I always look at the good more so than the bad. I definitely have way more positive experiences than negative. So, I really have to like wreck my brain sometimes to think about like some of the negative experiences that I've had.
Right.
Kind of buried them. But yeah.
So I'm also going to pick up off of something you said a little bit earlier. You talked about this relationship that you're in now. How has dating been living abroad? Both, and you can compare Korea to Oman.
Oh, child. Okay. So, yeah,
let's have tea now.
Yes. Dating has been an interesting journey. It definitely had to kiss a few frogs to finally get to someone who's on the same page as me. But sometimes you get taught that lesson over and over again until you learn it, and then you realize, okay, I deserve more, I deserve better. But yes, dating in South Korea, it was a challenge. It was a bit of a challenge. I've been in relationships, a couple, definitely had some heartbreak there. Being a Black, American woman, most of the guys, actually all of the guys I dated in South Korea were African. Like most of the American guys, they were Afro Korean girls, and Korean guys weren't checking for too many Black girls, especially 5'10". Like right. I was intimidating for a lot of them. So, I definitely had some interesting, heartbreaking experiences in South Korea, but get to Oman, started off again, the Cosmos story, like heartbreak again. So there was a lot of that. But, finally present day, I'm in a healthy relationship. Another African man, a Sudanese brother who, we're on the same page, we're on the same wavelength, like with our goals and what we want in life. So it's been a fruitful journey in the end, but I can't say it wasn't without its challenges. But that's everywhere. That's a global epidemic for systems.
It is. But how did you meet?
We actually met. Are you familiar with Internations?
I am.
Yeah, so we met at an Internations, a quote unquote networking event, but we were networking. So yeah, it's so funny because like he actually did a similar thing as I did. Like before the event, how you can see who RSVP for the event. So I did. I scrolled through. I was like, oh, let me check out because I'm all about networking and seeing who's going to be there. I was like, who do I want to meet? So he did the same thing before. Wow. So it's so funny because like literally when he was looking for me, like, I don't remember how many people were there, but he was actually like looking around like, okay, I know that, this girl's going to be here. I really want to meet her. So, it was so funny. Like when we met, he had his phone out and I saw like my profile on Internations, like it was on his phone. So he was like looking for me.
Oh, wow.
I kind of glanced and I was just, so, like for me, I was like, some people would have been like, okay, that's weird. But for me, I was just
I would have been scared.
Yeah, and that's something. But for me, I just felt comfortable. Like for some odd reason, I kind of felt like, okay, he was actually trying to like make sure that he found me before the night was over.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was actually kind of like interesting. So we started chatting, exchanged numbers, and from there, he followed my blog. He was just like, you're doing amazing things. And I think one of the things I really appreciated was the fact that he was intentional when he met me. Like, he was just complimenting me on what I was doing. And he was like, if you need anything, needed assistance, I know somebody in advertising and marketing, and I was like, wow, like he really was up in what I'm doing, like my side hustle. Like he was like, you can do it full time. Like I believe in you. Okay. So yeah. So that I was sold after that.
And so, how long have we been in this relationship now?
It's been a few years. Like we
Oh,
started.
wait a minute.
Yes, it's been a minute.
She
Exactly.
said years. Hold up.
It's been 2 years. Yes, girl. That's what I mean. It's
She
crazy. I
hides
realized.
things well, you all.
Let's think about it, because Internations, that was pre-pandemic when we met. Like, because
Okay.
during the pandemic, Internations weren't doing in-person events. So yeah, it's been a few years. Yeah.
And we learn more, you all. We learn more. Thank you for that, T.
Welcome.
You need to go to internations.com, you all. Or I don't know if it's .org, but internations. There you go.
Yep, it's
Yes.
.org.
Well, that's interesting. So what's next for you? Like, how long do you foresee yourself being a teacher living abroad? Do you anticipate at some point you'll go back to the US, or will you shift and be a full-time writer, travel writer? What's next?
That is honestly, that's the $1 million question. What is next? Like, we're actually in the process right now waiting for my new contract, my new offer with my university here in Oman. So I'm definitely going to be sticking with teaching for another few years. But I mean, honestly, the dream would be, like I said, to make the side hustle the full-time, job, like to be able to travel the world, just write and blog and be an influencer. Like that would definitely be the ultimate goal. But in the meantime, like I said, marrying the two passions, if I have to teach for some time longer, like being able to still do what I love, or traveling or writing on the side, I'm definitely open to that. But yeah, I think the future, I have to see what it holds. Like, I don't really envision myself living back in the US anytime soon, if at all. Even my mom, she was just like, "You're not coming back," and she's okay with it. She's just like, "Girl, you're living your life. Why would you?" Like, so, ultimately, I would like to retire abroad. Definitely, probably not in the Middle East, but maybe like Portugal. Like my ultimate dream is like to have a hostel, like have my little place where I can retire from teaching and still have my income coming in from having my own property abroad. Like that's really the ultimate goal, the dream. So as we say here, inshallah.
Inshallah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that and some of your journey with us and my listeners, or with, I guess, my listeners and myself. But I really always try to ask and end my interview with the individual giving some type of advice. So what would you advise others who are thinking about living abroad, maybe not be a teacher, but if they decide to be a teacher, what would be your advice if someone wants to leave the US or leave whatever country that they're living in and move somewhere else and try to find some work, or just make their passion their side hustle, however they do it? What's your advice for them?
Definitely, I would say, in the beginning, definitely do your research. I mean, there's so many communities out here, travel groups, I love the Globe Trot and listening to podcasts. Like there's so many avenues to learn about opportunities out there. So definitely take the time to do your research first. Don't just like, oh, I'm going to move abroad and just spin the globe and go somewhere. Like take the time. There's people all under the sun, all over the world to network with and to learn internations, these different sources. Take the time, do your research, but at the end of the day, step out on faith. The U.S. Wherever you're based, it's not going anywhere. You can always go back, but at the end of the day, it's worth investing in yourself and in trying. So I would definitely say do your research, step out on faith, and yeah, go for it.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I'm having you here as my guest on my second season of Life's a Vacay. It's been amazing just reconnecting with you and seeing how your journey has unfolded. And so please tell my listeners how they can contact you or follow you.
Oh, yes, definitely been a pleasure catching up. Thank you so much for the opportunity. They can find me the blog, I Love to Globe Trot. The spelling is unique. It's ILUV, the number two, then globetrot.com. And actually have the same name on Facebook, the travel community, and on IG and Twitter. So that's really the best way to reach me, and they can find my email if they want to reach out on the website as well.
Thank you, Nicole, for coming to talk to me today. It has been a pleasure. And for all the listeners, new or old, I'm your host, Chad Jones. If you like this show, please subscribe, share, and donate to help keep it going. Until next time, remember always to find time to live and express your freedom. Peace.